Hi all. We did great in looking at immigration last week. I know taking sites is challenging, but we had a great debate on which historian had a better thesis. This is hard to do, and we did it well. Keep this up. Remember, if you are stuck with taking sides, see the discussion starters that I have provided for you. This will help you to critique a historian. The discussion starters. Students often find it hard to critique people who are experts in the field, yet this is something we must all strive to do. It helps us to be informed citizens and critically think about the information that is handed to us. Anyone can look at evidence and see if the puzzle our historians have put together makes sense. Plus, I hope that you are noticing in history, not many scholars agree. We can weigh in on who has the better judgment, argument, evidence, or questions. I liked last week's voice thread primary source discussion because it brought the national narrative to the local level. Local history is a wonderful tool that we can use to examine not only what was going on here at the what was going on here, but at the national level also. Does California experience history as the nation does? I once had a professor in college do a complete history survey class through the perspective of a Californian. Surprisingly, it was a powerful lecture and demonstrates how California is a leading power in this nation. Most of the class posted their topic selection in their wikis. Great! Start working on your project. The next step will be to gather your primary and secondary sources and format them into an annotated bibliography. You will post all work that you complete in the wiki that you used 2 weeks ago. So you'll place it in here again. And you should have your same wiki, and you would click edit. Last week, a few students posted their Taking Sides outline to the Taking Sides discussion forum. Please do not do this. This forum is a place to discuss and thrash out ideas and evidence of the reading. You may use parts of your critique in the outline for your Taking Sides discussion post. However, I encourage you to work hard at critiquing the historian on your own. This week, you will create your first blog. Your blog assignment is mandatory and is an easy way to earn 5 points. Blogging lets me know how you are doing in the course, gives you a chance to reflect on the course, and see some of your classmates' perspectives. Remember that the blog is visible to everyone in our class. You should share information that is relevant to the course and use your best academic writing skills. Remember that you should work on the project all semester long. Don't forget to check our book lecture for other business items, and always feel free to join me in virtual hours on Sunday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. Have a great week, everyone.